Hi, everybody. Welcome to Monday. I was just noticing that my internet seems to be a little weird right now. It's like cutting out a couple times in the intro section. So if that happens, we will just stop and pick up tomorrow morning. Sometimes in the evenings, it doesn't go as well as in the morning. So hopefully we'll be okay, but we'll see. So today is the start of our new module, our second to last one, Module 7. We're going to be talking about two not super related topics, acids and bases, and then polymers. And then you'll be getting started on your final project. So tonight I want to go through the final project proposal and show you how to find those types of papers and how that's supposed to all connect. Then I'm going to go through the other things that you're going to do this week, just so you can take a look at them. And then on Friday, we'll go more in detail with the material on acids, bases, and polymers. And then hopefully everything will be fairly straightforward. I will tell you now, particularly with polymers, that's not something that a lot of people have learned about before. We're going to be drawing structures and that kind of thing. So there are some great references linked on Blackboard. I encourage you to read through those and then listen in as we go through it together on Friday. But I think the polymer identification activity may not make a lot of sense until we talk about it together on Friday. So that said, let's take a look at just the general stuff for this week. So you've got our normal general stuff. There's no article report this week. Your major assignments here are the final project proposal, where you will be picking your research papers for the final project. You've got an acids and base lab that's kind of half virtual, half physical. You can actually do it all virtual if you don't have any of the supplies, but we'll be using the last thing from your lab kit, which is the acid base indicator tea bag. And then we'll be proposing your last at-home experiment to be carried out next week. Then we have this polymers activity where you're going to be looking for polymer materials in your house and trying to identify them. And then a quiz to wrap it all up. Okay, so let's take a look first at the final project proposal. All right. So for the final project, what you're going to be doing is kind of putting together all the stuff that we've been talking about in terms of reading science, interpreting science, criticizing science, understanding how science is done. And so to do that, we're going to do an activity that links up some popular types writing, like you might have done for your early article reports, with scientific reports that you just did last module. So looking at real scientific papers. All right, so the way the project works is you find some article that mentions some stuff about something science, and it doesn't have to be chemistry related. It should be something that links scientific studies. So it could be social science, it could be medicine, it could be nutrition, it could be exercise science, it could be chemistry, it could be climate change, atmosphere stuff, whatever you're interested in, whatever you want to find out about. The other thing that's a little bit different about this from the article reports is this first article that we're going to call the article, it doesn't have to be reliable. In fact, it can be a nice paper if you find an unreliable source. So it could be, from some random website or some blog or Facebook or whatever. Could be anywhere. Those first article reports, we said, make sure you get them from a reputable newspaper or something. This time, that's not important. It can be not reputable. It can be whatever. Because we're going to actually look at the background information, or you're going to, in the course of your project, you're going to look at the background information and figure out whether this is reliable or whether they or not, whether they interpreted this properly or not. So what you're going to do is find an article, again, that can be from anywhere, but here's the real key here. It cites at least 2 scientific research papers like the ones that you looked at last week. So within that article, there should be either links to or citations to, references to, at least 2 scientific papers. So those are those, like, you know what those look like now, those studies that have lots of authors, that have those different sections, introduction and methods and results and discussion and all that stuff. So it should link to 2 of those published peer review papers. Now, depending on how you find this, you may not get a direct link. It may be like in a references section, but that's what you're looking for. So then you're going to take those research papers, those research papers or research reports, and you're going to go through them very carefully using the skills that we learned last week. So, looking at the background information, looking at all those different questions from last week, and really trying to figure out, what is this research paper saying? What did it find out? And what is still not so clear? And then tying that back to the original article. However the article described this paper, is it legit or not? Did it really explain the science properly? Did it take shortcuts? Did it exaggerate the results? Did it report that, like, they found this big thing out when actually it wasn't really all that certain? So that's the idea, and that's what you're going to be writing about. The assignment here has a nice rubric, so you can see how to get, or what I expect for the papers. And then on Blackboard, I've also uploaded a bunch of student papers from past years with names removed. These were good papers, A papers, so you can get a sense of what a good paper looks like. I don't like to get specific in terms of length and things like that, because I feel like you can do a good job in a lot of different ways. So there isn't an exact structure you need to follow. There isn't an exact length you need to have. Look at the examples for your references, but you'll see that people have different ways of doing this and making it work. So I always like to look at examples when I'm trying to do stuff. So I thought that would be helpful for you as well. Now, you're not supposed to just write the paper this week, although you're welcome to. If you do finish it early, it's not due until the end of the semester. But if you finish it early and you want some comments, you want to do like a draft, I'd be happy to go through a draft and give you comments to make it better. I'm very happy to do that. So that's a good idea. But at least for this week, I want to make sure that everybody has their articles in hand. And so that's really what I'm asking you to submit this week. If you go to the actual assignment, you'll see what I'm asking for here. So I want full text copies of the article, which is the thing that is just from a newspaper or wherever, and then the research papers. Ideally, you just have all that stuff in a PDF and you upload it there. If that's too much trouble or difficult, you can put in links, but make sure the links go right to the paper. One of the reasons that we're getting all these papers early is that sometimes the papers are not freely accessible. A lot of research papers are published by commercial journals that you have to have a subscription to access. Now, you don't need to buy those papers. So if you click on something, you get to something and it says, access this paper for $30 or something, or $40. They're really expensive. Don't pay that. All you need to do is go to the library, not physically, but go on the chat and say, I need to access this article. How do I do it? And they will help you get it. You can also ask me. And if you're very resourceful, I'm not going to go through it explicitly, but there are ways to get these things online. So I can talk with you in private about that. But our library has subscriptions to lots and lots of journals. So just because you can't access something freely on the internet, you should be able to get it from the library within a few days. Now, that said, it is within a few days. So you have to give them a little bit of time, which is why we're making sure to get the articles and get everything set up right now. All right. So let's take a look at where you might find these papers and how that might look. So I think a good way to start here is just by doing some general internet searches for things like I don't know, let's see. Let's try I don't want to look up COVID stuff because everybody's all sick of it. Let's look at studies on food and cancer. How about that? All right. So now we got a bunch of whatever, right? You got a bunch of results. They could be good, they could be bad, whatever. But what we're going to do is try to find some articles that link to specific research papers. So this first one, this certainly looks shady. You can just tell, by looking at the website that this is like somebody's thing that they're trying to get you to buy, right? And one reason that you can tell right away that it is shady is there are no references. So this has a whole bunch of stuff about cancer, but there's no references to any kind of scientific reports. Here's one here. I mean, yeah. So we're not getting linked to actual real science. So this is pretty obviously nonsense, which is fine. You can do nonsense in your project as long as they're trying to support it with research. That's all right. Let's try something else. So we can just discount that right away just because it doesn't link to those articles. We need to be able to reference those articles. So here's one, cancer and diet. What's the connection? All right, this one's making us log in, so we're not going to do that either. So you can see it takes a little work. I'm just clicking random stuff. Avoid these cancer-causing foods. So again, this is anything with like these lists of various things is usually a good place to start. But again, we're looking for those links to science. There's no links to scientific papers here. They're saying stuff, but they're not backing it up with real references. So this, not only does this not work for the project, but we probably shouldn't listen to them anyway. If they're not going to back up what they're saying with references, then we know that we don't necessarily want to trust it. All right, let's look at another one. That didn't do anything either. Okay, maybe this is a bad search term. One thing, recent studies or recent research sometimes gives some better results. Let's see what this one says. So this one, new study estimates preventable cancer burden linked to poor diet in U.S. And it sources a study. So here's the story. So this would just be like the article. And then they do talk about a study. The study published today in this journal, it estimates that diet-related factors, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so that's great. They summarize the study. They summarize the results. That looks good. There is a reference right down here. You can see that. So here's a nice reference that takes us to the actual study. So this is almost the kind of thing you're looking for. There's one problem here. The problem for this project is there's only one article that is linked in this particular article. So ideally, you would find this type of a thing, but that has references to at least two. And it's really better if you can get a bunch because some of them you might not want to read because they're too long and hard. Some of them might be too short. Some of them might not be accessible. So if you have more references, you have a little bit more choice there. But it can be hard to find these things. So here's one paper, and this is totally a great type of paper, right? It's got those sections that we want. We can get a PDF of it right here, so it's freely available. We don't even need a subscription. The PDF is available right here, and it looks like a scientific paper. It's got its results, it's got its tables, its methods. Hopefully we'll see some graphs down here maybe. Looks like all just tables on this one, all numbers, no graphs. But that's the idea. Like you want to find these types of paper that are linked from the other article. All right, so this almost works. This almost works. Remember, the key is the paper links from another just general interest article that's meant for normal public consumption. So you're not going to a scholarly search engine like Google Scholar and looking for a journal article specifically for a scientific paper. You're looking for a regular article that links to scientific papers. All right. I'm just going to click on a couple more of these and see if we can find one that works. A lot of the health stuff, you definitely get some shady websites that are not going to be what you want. So here, ultra processed food linked to cancer. And here again, so here we see the article, we see the research paper that is linked, and that goes to the journal. And then this one actually would work because we have past research has found that Americans get 61% of their calories from highly processed foods. So that's another study that we could go look at and try to get that one too. Again, and then here, you get a few more links with even more research studies. I'm not sure those are all totally fine research studies. We'd have to go through them and check. But, it seems like, well, that one just goes to, so no. So these three all go to other news articles. But at least these first two up here do actually go to journals. So we can find one here from the BMJ. This journal. So here's an example of where it's linking to like a logins section rather than the article itself. So this is an example of an article that is maybe not freely available. So we would have to get some help from the library to actually find and access that article because we do not have direct login credentials here or a subscription to this article. So the library could maybe help us with that one. You can get stuff from the library in two different ways. All right, so this one, it doesn't actually quite work because that second link just goes to another article that also goes to the study. So if you're really needing to, you can do a couple jumps like that if that's all you can find, because now here we have the article. It's actually a freely available one. So we could use that and just assume that they cited it, even though it goes through this intermediate step of another article. But we want eventually to have the article and then two research papers cited by this. So if we wanted to do this one, I would say we could use this one fine. But then for the other one, we need to access this thing from BMJ. There's two ways to do that. So first is to go to the library's website and look up the name of the journal and just see if they have access to it in the catalog, because they do have subscriptions to lots of journals. If they happen to have a subscription to it, you can just link to it through the library's site, and it will have you log in with your Harper credentials, and then you can access the stuff. If they don't have a subscription to this particular journal, then you have to get it through something called Interlibrary Loan, where you fill out a form saying, this is the article I want, and then and then they send it to you via email and PDF. And usually it's pretty quick. It just takes a couple days. So you don't want to do it super last minute, but it's not like you're going to be waiting and waiting. If you try to, let me see if I can find the Harper Library here. If you try to find something that is really obscure, like a journal that was not published in the US, or especially an older journal that was not published in the US, where like there's literally a hard copy, in a library in Russia or China or something, that's going to take a while. We can still get a copy of it. The library will still get a copy of it, but it might take a while. But as long as it's something that's available online and we just don't have access to it, they can get it through Interlibrary Loan, generally no problem. So let me show you what that looks like here. So you go up to the library menu, and it's in Services, Interlibrary Loan. So right here. And you fill out this form. So you need to know like your name, obviously, your Harper ID. And then how to find the thing. So you need the journal name, the article name, the page number, all the stuff in the citation there. And then you send that off and they will email you the article. If you have questions about all that stuff, or you're just not sure how to access this, how to access something, the library has a really nice live chat service and also research appointments for remote help. So you can pull this up and ask a question directly. You can call them during the day. You can send them an email saying, I can't seem to access this thing. Or you can actually make up an appointment and say, hey, here's what I'm looking for this project, and a librarian will help you find all that stuff. So if you're going through and you're just having trouble finding things for the project, this is a great way to help. Librarians are experts at research. We think of sometimes librarians, like with our past experience, as like with school librarians or public librarians, but academic research librarians are different. They have this expertise to just be able to like find any information that you need. I mean, that's a little exaggerated, but they do a great job with that stuff. So if you need some help, definitely look up a librarian. All right. So if you're trying to plan your time around what to do for these 2 weeks for this module, I would say start this first. Try to get those articles, because it may take some time before you actually have them in hand. So, just start looking around on the internet, start browsing through some topics that you're interested in, and try to find some things that link to scientific studies. The first couple things you look for, you may not find anything. But then hopefully, as you refine your search terms and figure out what you want to do, you can find some things that work. So let me know if you're really having trouble. But I'm going to ask like what you've done so far and what you've had trouble finding so far. So I expect you to put some effort into it first to try to find this stuff. So I would do that first. Close all this stuff up, because then you've got this all set up for your final project proposal. You know how to write an at-home experiment at this point. I do have to link the form though. You can get it from one of the other modules if you're really jumping on that. The acid-base lab is pretty straightforward. Most of you have some experience with acid and base chemistry from your previous whatever. So that will be, some of it will be a little new, but most of it is probably stuff you've heard before, like pH. And I know some of you have done that kind of stuff for your at-home experiments anyway, so it might be a little bit of a repeat there. I would for now hold off on the polymer stuff, because that's going to be new for most people. So you probably want to wait till we talk about that in more detail on Friday. But hopefully that's enough to keep you busy without being overwhelmed. So if this week, if you make sure to get those articles, maybe get the at-home experiment proposal done. And then next week, you can work on the polymers, acids and bases, and then take the quiz on Friday, and should be good. All right, so as usual, I'm happy to answer your questions. I know I'm behind on grading, so I'm going to be working on that frantically over the next couple of weeks to try to get caught up. So hopefully you'll see more of your scores coming in. And then the withdrawal deadline is coming up. So if you don't, I'm going to try my best to get all the grades caught up by then, so you really know where you're at in this class if you're somebody who needs to make a decision about whether or not to withdraw from the course. All right. Hopefully everything else is doing okay. Again, go out, get those vaccines. I got an appointment for mine on Wednesday, so excited about that. And yeah, I will talk to you on Friday. Good night, everybody.